Hi, my name is Brian. I'm the owner of the Ultimate Startup Team, and today we're going to talk about how to estimate painting jobs. Okay, so background on me and my company. We have a company in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we routinely do over 7 figures a year. So if we know one thing, it's how to actually estimate paint jobs. So we boiled it down to just three, areas to basically focus on whenever actually constructing an estimate for a painting project. Okay, so the first portion that we like to focus on is just actual production rates. So what a production rate is, it's just you kind of knowing how long it takes to typically paint, surface area on like a wall, or just like linear foot of the trim, or just, the ceilings or like the trim in here. So basically just knowing how much, space that a painter can typically paint on average per hour typically does help whenever you average it out across the board for your entire team. And just having an actual production rate to base your company with like a reference point to like build up from there is like super critical to just being able to make consistent profit year in and year out. So I'm going to show you guys real quick what I mean by that, because right here, I don't know how well you'll see it, but we have production rates for exterior painting right here. So like we have like a formalized SOP, a checklist, like kind of breaks down how much hours, it takes to paint like a deck or like a railing or eaves and fascia. And we basically have that for both interior and exterior painting. So we base those off of, how long it takes our team on average, and like it's, routinely tweaked and adjusted throughout the year, but that ultimately spits out a labor hour count for us. So just having the ability to like know that a project is going to take 100 hours of labor and accurately have confidence in that, that's the first, winning secret to like actually having the ability to estimate these jobs. So once you actually have the production rates and they spit out the labor hour number, the next thing that you really need to focus on is just having your charge rate. So like just understanding what a charge rate is, understanding, like if you're charging 50 per hour or 60 or 70 per hour, how does that actually equate to how much money you'll be making after the job's produced, assuming it's done on time? So a charge rate is typically just like your hourly rate that you multiply your total labor hours by, before you start adding in paint material. So with our company, like we're routinely around like $65 per hour plus paint plus material. So depends on like what part of the country you're in and located, but that's generally a pretty high charge rate. So I think the most important thing is with that is like just knowing that just like the concept and ideology of like how that fits into the actual formula, because you basically just have a labor hour count number, say that's 100 hours, and then you have a charge rate. So just to make it easy, let's just say charge rate is $50 an hour. So you take that charge rate times how many hours, and that gives you $5,000 as your base, just for like the actual labor and the markup. So once you have those two numbers, you basically calculate how much paint and material you would need to actually produce the job, and then you would add that in to the actual charge rate. Okay? So it's really up to you to kind of like do the other math that's kind of like related into that factor to figure out, if you would produce it at 100 hours with an average painter making $20 an hour, after the taxes, workers' comp, and all that other burden that goes into that actual painter painting, how much actual profit are you making on that job? So usually painters, the biggest mistake that they make is they don't understand how much profit they should be making in terms of like gross profit and net income. So that's like the first issue. And the second issue is kind of like miscalculating the actual number whenever it comes down to it, because you still could be charging $50 per hour and adding in paint material and only grossing like 38% profit. And although that might sound okay, whenever you kind of like reverse engineer it and factor out like the overhead and every other other factor that goes into the actual, production of that actual service, 38% gross really is not that much. It really depends on how much your overhead is, because like there's a lot of variable fluctuation to that. But in other words, like the target that you should be shooting for is 50% gross profit. That's assuming that your overhead typically doesn't fall above 30%. So it's 30% or lower. The material should be close to 15% or lower. and then the labor should be close to 35%. So if all those numbers are kind of like adding up and they actually, hit those marks and benchmarks, then you should be making about 20 to 30% net income as an owner. So that's a huge difference, because if your gross profit was at 38%, for example, and your overhead was 30%, it was like crazy high for some reason, then that's only 8% net income as an owner. So, just do the math, like a matter of 15 to 25% difference in terms of like actual money in your pocket, that's a huge deal. So whenever it comes down to estimating paint jobs, again, have production rates, both interior, exterior, whether it's cabinets or just like any service that you offer. That's super, super important. And then from there, just have your charge rate, know how much paint material you need to have into the job, multiply and add all that together to get the actual number, and then just kind of like reverse engineer it based off of your actual painter's average wage, or if it's a subcontractor model, know the payout structure. Just know that your gross should be 50% profit. And there's a lot more that goes into how to actually sell and convert those jobs, because the sales process is a totally different ballgame, which is a whole nother video. But if you understand those three areas, you have a really high success rate and chance of actually making some money whenever you're actually going through the actual process of estimating these jobs. So I hope that helps. Again, my name is Brian, owner of the Ultimate Startup Team. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me, message me, click the links in the bio, and looking forward to talking to you in the next video. Thank you.